Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
If you're training for Boston this year, you already know this isn't just any marathon. Boston rewards runners who come prepared, who understand how to manage the downhills, the Newton Hills, and that final high-energy push down Boylston. That's why we created Run Your Best Marathon at Boston, a 4-part webinar series from Microcosm Coaching designed to help you nail every detail of race day. Across 4 expert-led sessions, we'll cover course strategy, how to pace the rolling terrain, avoid the trap of starting too fast, and use the course profile to your advantage, race fueling and hydration, what to eat, drink, and practice in training so you stay energized through Heartbreak Hill and beyond, mental prep and mindset training, how to stay steady when the race gets tough, and harness the energy of those Boston crowds without burning out early. We'll also chat through taper and race week logistics, including everything from travel, nutrition, and recovery to what to do in those final days before the start in Hopkinton. Each session includes live Q&A with our coaching team, plus practical tools you can apply immediately in your training. Think downloadable pacing guides, fueling templates, and real-world examples from athletes who've been there. For less than the cost of a new pair of running shoes, you'll get pro-level guidance, a clear plan, and lifetime access to all recordings and resources. Whether you're chasing a Boston PR or just want to enjoy the day, this series will help you show up confident, prepared, and ready to run your best Boston ever. Spots are limited, so head to microcosmswag.com and sign up for Run Your Best Marathon at Boston today. We are indeed back.
It's sunny out.
It is sunny out. It was rainy out this morning, and now it's sunny, and
It was raining yesterday.
it was rainy yesterday, and it was rainy the day before.
And
It rained
before that.
all weekend, and I'm so bummed because, we are staring down the barrel of winter in the mountains, and sometimes it's, really hard to it's always, at the end of winter, I'm always like, that wasn't so bad, except for the winter 2 years ago where I was like, that really sucked and was mentally hard because it was we had winter for 6 months and it was gray nonstop and everyone in the valley had seasonal affective and was really depressed. And I did so many runs and we had a ton of days that were below zero, which is not super normal. And last year I finally made peace with the treadmill, and that was a huge life upgrade for me.
I have already done my first treadmill run of the season, and I feel like it's come 2.5 months too soon.
Too soon.
So I'm getting my head around that right now, and I'm
Yeah.
looking out the window here, and we have a few trees that look just so beautiful.
Maybe I'll try to get up in the mountains again this weekend.
But unfortunately, the leaves are slowly falling, and they have really fallen in the neighborhood.
Aspens have occurred.
I know. And that just means winter is on the way, which is, I don't know, I feel like it's relevant to today's conversation.
Frame desert season.
I'm not ready to commit to.
I'm ready. Shout out to my Cocapelli queens. You know who you are.
Oh, God. I feel anxiety thinking about spending 3 hours in the car every single Saturday.
I don't mind it.
You just pop a podcast
on. I mean, you're going to be sitting. What's the difference between sitting on the couch and sitting in the car?
Piriformis pain. That's my nemesis.
I have excellent butt health, so it's not a problem.
Wow. It's not the butt.
It's a healthy butt.
It's
the butt. Your piriformis is your butt.
It's an area. It's a muscle.
It's the scientific word for butt.
Scientific. Wow. I feel like
it's science for butt.
I don't feel validated here, Zoe. I feel very
You are
upset.
seen, you are heard, your butt is special, and it is enough. And I'm sorry that she gets sad when she has to sit in the car.
So sad.
Yeah.
So sad. In fact, I might be squirming on this podcast today. This is the first time I've sat at work.
Yeah,
all week.
you're doing like nerve glides under the desk.
I-
So that's good.
I am. I'm preparing myself for the next 45 minutes.
We're living, that's, it's reality. We're not here to sugarcoat things. We are bummed about winter and your butt hurts. Welcome to the Microcast.
Hope someone out there is laughing.
Yep.
Because I'm crying on the inside. All right. What are we getting into today?
So we're going to do some hot or nots. Call out. We need some more listener hot or nots. So send us an email at microcosmcoaching@gmail.com or comment on this video or podcast wherever you listen. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, know that you can listen as a podcast. And if you're listening as a podcast, you can listen and watch on YouTube. Whatever floats your boat. We don't super duper care.
Nope.
It's all the same to us. Then we're going to answer a question from Reddit, which is one of our weekly go-tos. And then today, our main topic is we are talking about the difference between steady state runs, tempo runs, and threshold runs. What are they? When do you do them? And how do athletes get these things wrong?
Nice. All right. Hot or not? Pacing with a pace group.
It's like fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'm
like
kind
this
of
isn't
on
really
it.
a thing for ultras.
Right.
Like I've never done it.
We're a running podcast, Zoe. We're not an ultra.
I know that, but like this is like I don't have an N of one to bring to it. I think that if you have a certain pace, you want to run for a road race, and there's a pace group that fits that, then like rock on. It's awesome.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I think having somebody
Seems
who
great.
can pace you and you just latch on
Yeah.
and you just go, that's probably going to help you run a better race.
Yeah. I do love like the people who lead the pace groups that like have the sign that's like 4 hours.
Right.
I think those people are badass.
When I volunteer at the marathon here in town every year, there's like a pacer for each group. And my favorite is like when the last guy comes through and he's like, we're done for the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nice. You can pack it up and go home. But no, it's fun because actually it's a pretty small marathon. I don't know. Compared to like the majors, this is a small marathon. I think there's about 1,000 people who do it or something like that. And usually there's always like a group right around the pacer. And so I can see, and I always wonder like, did that pacer train to pace this?
I've trained people to pace marathons before.
Because they have to be so dialed in.
Yeah.
And that guy was like fueling. Like this one guy came into the aid station. He was like, give me 3 gels.
Awesome.
I need 6 cups of Gatorade.
Yeah.
He went like ham. And I could tell that he was really working hard to run that time.
I have so much respect for those folks because like, I mean, ideally you're running at a pace that's like extremely comfortable that like you just know that you can execute on. But I still like people who are just able to bang out. I mean, running a marathon is incredible. Running a marathon in the amount of time you want to run it in, super incredible. I have so much respect for folks who are able to execute to that extent and then channel that level of execution into supporting others in their marathon journey. So I think that's very cool.
It's hot.
It's hot.
I'd say it's hot.
Yeah.
I'd say if you're the pacer in a pace group, pretty freaking hot.
Yeah. Very cool. We stand a pace king.
All right. Wearing finishers gear from previous races to bib pickup.
I feel like this has like a little bit of the energy of like at freshman orientation, the person who like literally gets the free shirt and then puts it on immediately for orientation. There's a little bit of that, but also like I will also say that as like a person who's done a lot of races, you end up with a lot of gear and I don't know where to wear it. Like I can't wear it to work really. I don't want to wear it like out of town with my girls. I'm not going to be wearing like my like Leadville shirt. Although I do wear a Leadville sweatshirt like a lot because I think it's comfortable and I'm proud of that race.
I only wear my Western States finisher shirt in situations where
You've worn it for jazz shows, right?
Like where I know nobody knows what that shirt is.
I think that's a very cool subtle spray.
And it just looks like a cool shirt.
Yeah, but like real guys, like no,
It's a spray.
Yeah.
It's a spray.
It's a soft spray.
if you wear that shirt, like if I wear my Leadville sweatshirt, that's a spray. You might be wanting someone to see that. Maybe not. Maybe not.
It's okay.
Certain personalities are.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fine. Like, if you finished a race that you're proud of, find ways to communicate around that. Own it. I always find if you're able to fashionably wear a belt buckle without looking like a total chode, then hats off to you.
I haven't figured that out.
I have not figured that out.
Yeah. How does it even attach to a belt, like a normal belt? I have a belt that
I'll have to show you this after. I actually do know the answer to this question, but it's not something I can describe.
I don't think I have a belt. I think I would need to purchase a specific kind of
No, I think you have a belt that we can sub out the buckle on.
Well, because the next time I go to a wedding,
you want to
wear a nice
Honestly,
belt.
That's pretty sick.
I'm gonna wear the biggest belt buckle I can,
which is the Leadville Sub 24 buckle.
Yes, that's the biggest one I have. But I have seen bigger.
Yeah,
Leadville has a weird thing with really large belt buckles.
Yeah,
they have some that are
you know what they say,
not practical. They're so large. So I would like to obtain one of those and wear one to a wedding.
It's not the size of the belt buckle. It's how you wear it.
It's 10 30-hour finishes at Leadville.
10 30-hour finishes at Leadville. So, I mean, this is fine. Wear it, I guess. Fine. We're all weirdos. Wear your weirdo shit around other weirdos. That makes sense to me.
What I will say that I think is funny is when we were at UTMB Argentina 3 or 4 years ago now at this point, folks were racing in their swag shirt.
The majority of people in this race wore the shirt they got for free. That is a level of nipple confidence that I don't resonate with. Same.
I'm at a loss for words to this day. Yeah. I've never seen so many people race in their UTMB swag shirt. Yeah. That they just got mere hours before starting the race. That's a bold move.
So bold.
I wouldn't recommend that to any athletes.
No. Especially because I feel like, now races are trying to give out the more athletic oriented shirts, which I feel like
I just want a nice cotton shirt.
Same. Because the women's cut is always so hit or miss. Sometimes I feel like they're oh, women must be short, and also they want the subtle flare at the hip. That's what all women want.
You like just a subtle flare.
A subtle flare. Because I don't like that. But it, sometimes the material is a little chafy.
Could be.
And I don't take chances with
that. It's got to be tried and true.
You got to try it. Would be my 10 cents. Maybe don't immediately get a free shirt and wear it the next day.
All right. That's not hot.
No.
Okay. Running all your easy runs at the same pace. And the context behind this question was well, if you run all your easy runs at the same pace, you could over time see that that normal pace is getting easier.
Yeah.
So hot or not?
I'm going to say no because it's pace, and I think your easy run should all be at the same effort, which is easy, and that pace should change if you are a human running on terrain, and even if you're a human not running on terrain, you're in a hermetically sealed terrarium with a treadmill, some days you should be more tired.
Yeah.
Some days you should be less tired. And therefore, if you're executing correctly on your effort, the pace should vary. So I'm going to say not hot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not hot. Focus on RPE and how the run feels and respond in each run with how you feel.
Correct.
I think that's the best way to effectively train over time. And this way of training likely will undermine adaptation process because you'll probably spend some days running too easy when you could be running faster and other days running too hard when you should be respecting the recovery process.
Yeah.
Just run the same loops.
Yeah.
Revisit the same terrain. And, over time you can see some of those trends. I think also if you engage in the training practice for long enough, you don't have to adhere to every run at the same pace to notice if those runs are feeling easier because you'll just have enough data. You just have enough experience.
You'll have enough data and experience. And I think that judging if your easy pace is getting easier is just like not a very effective way of like actually gauging progress.
Right.
I think that like a better like racing is a great way of gauging progress. Sort of using benchmarks like a threshold test is a great way of gauging progress. Like noting how you perform at intensity is going to be a more important indicator of success than your easy pace. Also, like I like to put a couple wins on the scoreboard, every year. Those numbers are going to move a lot faster, and it's harder to like you can lie. Your easy pace can lie. It can be really hard to find the signal in the noise, but if you do a threshold test, especially if you do one in a lab, that doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Or even if you do a threshold test, like, 20 minutes at threshold effort, that's going to be a more effective way of benchmarking progress than like, is my easy run getting easier? Because there's so many confounding factors in the easy run that you can isolate a bit more with the threshold test or with the VO2 max effort.
Well, and one thing we know is like as you get more advanced, that kind of easy pacing works on a bell curve. So your fitness starts to go up really quickly when you're newer to running.
Yeah.
So your pace, what feels more efficient and what feels easier for a pace actually can rapidly increase, and you kind of end up towards the top of that bell curve. But then as you actually get better, you realize I have to run some of these runs actually a lot easier.
Bingo.
So you start to really slow down and end up being more conservative on those days in order to get more out of your workouts and your long runs so you can perform better in races.
Yeah, I started running some of my first like back-to-back 100-mile weeks this year, which is new for me and exciting, and I was able to do those healthfully. And in the same year, my average pace overall slowed down.
Yeah.
So like if I was looking at that as my only indicator of success, on paper, it would tell me I've gotten worse at running. I just know that that is not true because I walked away with a check at the end of my season. So
right.
Tell my W2 that I'm getting worse.
You ran faster at the race.
I ran faster at the race, and I did a threshold test. And again, it's just like, I don't think that's the best predictor. And it's also tough because I've realized in making sure that like, my recovery days did get slower because I needed them to be slower because my hard days got harder. I also realized that as a younger athlete, I was running a little too hard on my easy days. And so that's a confounding variable to throw in there. And a lot of times, especially newer athletes, struggle to be honest about what is easy. And I will say that I don't think that's the best metric I don't think that's a good metric for measuring success. I think a different way of thinking about it is noticing easy runs feel easier is like, that's a nice feather in your cap to say like, I think this is getting better.
Right.
But like getting too attached to specific numbers in lieu of like feeling like I'm better at intentionally executing on a given effort. I think that's a better metric. But there's so many variables, and easy pace, that's such a big word. So I'm gonna say not hot to all of the stuff that I have just spewed that is only variably related to the original question. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Great. All right. Well, we can move on to our questions from Reddit segment. I thought this question was actually really great for this time of year. So just finished an under 2-hour half marathon after training over the summer. My peak training reached about 30 miles per week. I previously managed a 4-hour, 12-minute marathon in San Francisco, which is a hilly, tough course, and my 5K is currently around 23 minutes. So I'd say I'm solidly a low to intermediate runner. I would like a new goal as I'm enjoying running too much. Given winter weather is now approaching, what would you train for next? Drop the distance and improve speed and VO2 max to get that 5K time down closer to 20 minutes, or pivot to marathon training in the spring? My long-term goals are a sub 20-minute 5K, a sub 145 half, and a sub 4-hour marathon.
Very cool. I would also say, low key, a little impression I'm getting from this is that like, if you're running a sub 20-minute 5K and a 145 half, you should like fairly easy be able to like, if you have that fitness, you should be able to execute on a much I think, a significantly faster than 4-hour marathon. So I have some concerns about this person's endurance, likely related to flaws in a fueling or hydration strategy. That is me projecting and reading between the lines in a way that is maybe or maybe not appropriate, but I did just want to throw that in there.
You think with the 23-minute 5K time, they should be a little bit faster than that marathon?
I think that if their goals are to run a sub 20-minute 5K, that's fairly aggressive.
Yeah.
But a sub 4-hour marathon is like pretty doable with training.
So I wonder if that, at least to me, that you like the way you looked at that to me tells me everything about what the athlete should probably focus on next. So,
okay, I want to hear what you think, because now I'm thinking that I might have a totally different answer.
Okay. So I think the athlete would probably be really well served by continuing to build their aerobic system over time.
Mm-hmm.
All of these events are going to involve the aerobic system in a meaningful way, even though the 5K is a very high intensity, hard effort.
It's still aerobic.
It's still aerobic. So you can work towards any number of these goals while taking, I think, a periodized approach to the training that involves building up your mileage, like 30 miles a week. I'm not sure how, I guess, we know approximately how fast they are, right? They run a 23-minute 5K and a 4+ hour marathon. But I think, 30 miles a week is not a whole lot of volume.
Yeah.
And I don't have my calculator on me to extrapolate, if they're running these paces at a marathon, they're probably taking this much time to run 30 miles a week. But I would say that would be the first area that I would focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Use the winter to build your aerobic base. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to ignore speed.
Right.
I think what would help inform this plan would be to understand, when are you lining up these potential goals for the next year? When do you want to do the 5K? When do you want to do the half? When do you want to do the marathon?
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is they did the marathon before they did the half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I got from reading from reading their question. Because they just finished with a 2-hour marathon. Maybe we could invert that and have a logical progression to the season where we do a 5K, a half, and a marathon, building up that distance that would allow us to focus on speed, gradually build up your mileage per week, and then likely you'd be able to go under 4 hours. I think with good training, I'd probably be able to go under 4 hours.
Yeah. My slightly different take is that thinking of the approach of less specific closer, more specific, or less specific further out, more specific closer to the event, is if you're enjoying the 5K training, let's do some VO2 max work and build your speed and economy, and then do more build aerobic volume later, again depending on what is this person's tolerance for intensity, how durable are they, do they seem to respond really well to that intensity, do they seem to are we seeing something in their training that are they a lot of ultra runners and have their threshold is right under their VO2 max? Do they maybe have an awesome VO2 max and their ability to buffer lactate is not that great because they haven't developed that energy system very specifically? Understand, I would, if this person came to me, I would be okay, what goal personally excites you most? And then that we want to prioritize that. Also, what specific information do we have about you and your training history and your specific physiology, and what is maybe your specific low-hanging fruit that we want to prioritize? Absent that information, I would potentially default to, and neither of these approaches is wrong.
Well, and they're basically the same.
They're basically the same. It's I would maybe be oh, let's do VO2 max shorter term, especially I'm thinking it's winter, maybe doing lower volume is more fun and you won't have to be doing a bunch of long runs on the weekend in the snow, but that's me projecting Colorado on him. So again, so much of this stuff is individual, but just being what's your stoke level like does it maybe feel a little more attainable for us to target speed right now? Does that feel fun for you? Does it feel more fun and exciting to think about layering it, doing a little more maybe a 12-week base aerobic base oriented build, then we can do VO2 max, and like we'll be harnessing the aerobic base that you've built in those 12 weeks, and then VO2 max gains are much quicker than aerobic gains, so that'll be nice to like get some W's on the board and really move that fitness needle, and then pivoting to like more marathon specific training.
I do think there's, I mean, as you just illustrated, because you kind of talked down like 3 or 4 different possible approaches there. It really is about what is the timing of the goals for the next season, and what is, what's resonating with you, like which goal feels like the most important goal there. Because if it fits neatly into that like 5K, half marathon, then it makes sense to do, VO2 max and 5K work, now, because we can maximize on that, build up to a 5K and do that race. But if they want to do the marathon first, that's going to present, a different way of looking at things. And certainly, like, in order to train well for a marathon, you have to have a high ceiling to begin with, because you need to make space for the aerobic adaptations that you're going to have to run under 4 hours. So in order to train for a marathon, you're going to have to do 5K workout, presumably, to make that space, or else, eventually your aerobic system is not going to grow anymore. It can't grow through your ceiling. So I think that I think it's interesting. What I hear is like, oh, the athlete isn't quite sure what to do. So, hey, you know what, if you're an athlete out there who just finished up your season and you're not sure what to do, think about, like,
this is really where a coach, because like there's so many where I'm like, it depends,
right?
But also do whatever you want. But also, it sounds like you're new and you're stoked, and being new and stoked is I love that athlete, and you have to be so careful and tender with them to make sure you don't get out over, like, the excitement doesn't outrun your ability to absorb training load. And being intentional.
Don't get out over those
skis. Like, again, pay attention to what you're stoked on, but don't just like, and this is not, I get the sense that this person, like, what I love in this question is that sense of progression. I also love that they're not immediately like, and then I signed up for Cocodona. Like, that tickled me. I was like half expecting them to be like, like, my goals are to run a sub 20-minute 5K and get third at Cocodona.
I'm trying to find questions from Reddit that are like, healthy,
good
questions.
It can take a hot, like, we trade off finding the question on Reddit, because like, it's chaos out there, folks.
And these questions, I don't know if anybody else has been on the Reddit the running subreddit of Reddit. Is that how you say it? A subreddit?
r/running.
Yes. Inside there, I don't know if I'm describing this right, because I'm a new Reddit user. Inside there's a thread just for questions that they post every single day. They start a new thread for questions because there's so many questions on running in Reddit. That they can't just have like one thing dedicated to it, because it would be chaos. They have to have it each day. October 14th, these are the questions we're addressing. Okay, tomorrow we're addressing brand new questions. I think that's really cool. But anyways, yes, if you're this person, I don't know, where's your heart taking you? The one thing I want you to do is don't stop training. Just because you've completed your last goal doesn't give you a permission to stop training. Take a short recovery period. It's you ran a half marathon, take a couple days off, then get consistent again. Stay in touch with this process while you're figuring out those next steps. The biggest mistake I see people make in training is that they complete a big goal or a big season, and then they take a lot of time off. And then, it easily, time goes so freaking fast, especially the older you get. 2 weeks, all of a sudden it's 4 weeks off. Then it's been 2 months. Oh, now I have a goal in mind. Great. Well, you missed 2 months of training. And we know, because we did a podcast on how quickly you lose adaptations, or the minimum you need to do to maintain. If you do nothing for 2 months,
not great.
You sprinkle things in here or there for 2 months. you're gonna have a little bit of a learning curve getting back going for your next build.
Yeah, and I know I sound like a broken record on this, but if by the time you reach a goal, you feel like you need to take significant time away from the sport because your relationship to movement isn't feeling good, your relationship to your coach isn't feeling good, your relationship to training or running or structure, if any of those things feel really not good after reaching a goal or even maybe even more importantly, not reaching a goal, I think that you really need to go back to the process and reassess how you set those goals because that goal wasn't appropriate for you.
I don't think you can state that too many times because it's like it takes people 7, 8 times screwing that up to figure that out.
Yeah,
And to learn to set realistic goals is literally a psychological skill.
Yep.
That we all are working on building through this process.
Sure is.
So, keep playing the hits.
Keep playing the hits.
All right, should we transition here into
Let's do it.
our main topic? What's our intro?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, or a lot of it, I guess, since it's the main topic and we have half an hour left, steady state versus tempo versus threshold, because we use some of those things more than others in our coaching, but I see a lot of them thrown around on the internet. And I feel like I think people, it's really easy for them. I mean, we can all always be getting better, but we know what recovery efforts are and we know what easy efforts are. And I think there's a comfort with VO2 max efforts. But what about that middle zone? What about like the 7-8 RPE? A lot of this stuff sits in that zone. What does that look like? Because I think a lot of folks have heard these terms, tempo, threshold, steady state, and a lot of people might not really understand what they mean and how they're different because these workouts all live in that comfortably hard zone that builds aerobic strength, but they serve slightly different purposes. So we want to help runners understand how and when to use each of these intensities so that you're not just running hard for the sake of it, because these are intensities that need to be deployed really intentionally. And they're also the intensities that I see deployed with the least mindfulness in training.
If you're going to your running club track Tuesday thing, this is where I feel like this stuff just it's just, oh my God, like there's no structure. These workouts they don't build on anything that was done before. We're not actually periodizing these. We're kind of just doing something that seems fun in the moment and that gets people doing something that's higher intensity.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we need to repeat these workouts within a structured program over a certain duration of time for them to be successful, which is why your Wednesday track meetup is great socially, but it's really not effective in building your fitness.
You will get better at running when you do things on purpose.
Yes. We love purpose.
So I just kind of wanted to introduce the effort spectrum to like level set before we get started.
Okay.
Sort of thinking of things on a spectrum from like easy, endurance, steady state, tempo, threshold, then to VO2 max on the upper end. So I would say the zones that we're talking about today all sit below or around lactate threshold, the point where your body starts producing more lactate than it can clear. So the idea here is that each step up adds stress and ideally specificity. So the idea with steady state is that it is aerobic capacity work. So that's that 7 out of 10 effort. We'll talk more specifically about it later. But again, really depends on how this is deployed and what you mean, and we'll talk about all the difficulty there. Is ideally it helps with lactate processing and or aerobic endurance, depending on what it means and how you're doing it.
Depending on how you're tempoing.
Depending on how you're tempoing. Threshold, I think, this is the most specific because you can like measure the exact point at which you're no longer able to shuttle lactate, and that is the precise calibration of your red line. So let's start by talking about steady state runs, which is something I would call like strong but sustainable, a 7 out of 10 effort that's like the middle ground between an easy endurance run and a tempo effort.
I like to have athletes think about this as like 1 or 2 hairs faster than your typical easy effort.
Yeah.
So, basically like very low zone 3 if you're looking at a 5 zone model.
Yeah.
Again, 7 out of 10 is a great way of looking at that because like our easy running is done in 5 to 6 out of 10 RPE if you're using that RPE 10 scale. And so you should still be able to speak in short sentences.
Mm-hmm.
The hallmark of this, I think, is kind of like 2 sentences conversational.
Yeah.
You can get 2 sentences out. Maybe it's a little tough sometimes to speak. They're not going to be the most complicated sentences because you're trying to sustain a focused effort here.
Yeah.
Your breathing is pretty rhythmic. It's not relaxed. You're really starting to like you can feel your body is actually producing some significant output, but we're in a sustainable zone where it's like I can do this, but like I don't feel like I need to stop anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. And so let's talk about the physiology let's talk about what's happening in your body so you understand what you're doing and when to do it. So when you're working below your lactate threshold, you're producing a little lactate, but your body's clearing it easily. And this teaches your aerobic system to become more efficient. So more mitochondria, better capillary density, and a higher reliance on fat as fuel instead of glycogen. Your heart and lungs are learning to move more oxygen with less effort, building the durability that lets you go long without falling apart. And the way that I think about how this effort feels in my body, and this is one of the cautions here, is you don't want your endurance runs or your easy runs to turn into steady state. And that's one of the number one mistakes I see athletes make, is doing steady state runs on accident, especially for newer or even honestly of all levels, running on a hill. Is people can really get into the place where they start to accidentally do a steady state. When I am intentionally deploying steady state, the way that I think about it is I'm running with the safety off a little bit. I'm not really intentionally holding myself back on the hills, but I want to extend how that feels on the flats and the descents as well. So there's a little bit of a push involved.
Yeah, and I think athletes can think about it as maybe a 90-minute effort or up to 2 hours effort.
Yeah.
A really well-trained athlete can run for 2 hours at this effort level.
Yeah.
So, your body, it's working below your lactate threshold in these situations, which is why it's more sustainable than these other efforts that we do. And, it helps to build that aerobic durability, and your ability to hold a strong, steady state effort for hours can really help improve your race day performance. And it's super useful for marathon and ultra runners.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be using this energy zone, especially going uphill, and especially in those shorter ultras, thinking about 50-mile, 50K, you can definitely find some 7 out of 10 RPE in those races to kind of mess around with. So, it's you're getting used to that effort level that more or less you're gonna touch on in your race. So it can be fairly specific at times. The how-to on this. So effort, again, 7 out of 10. It feels comfortably hard. The duration, 20 to 60-minute intervals. So these are long intervals. And they're continuous.
Long, continuous intervals with short recovery.
Yep, short recovery.
Because I would say if you have a workout I like to give is 2 by 30. This is a more advanced workout, 2 by 30 minutes at steady state with 5 minutes easy recovery. If you need more than 5 minutes between those intervals, you went too hard.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And I like that test.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to split up these intervals so athletes can kind of calibrate between the first one and the second one. Smooth rolling terrain or flat terrain are great for this, but also uphill work can be really good for these too.
You want to avoid it's okay if there's a little bit of downhill, but what we want to avoid, and this is the same for really all intensity, is you want the terrain to work with the effort and not against. And you don't want to be running super hard downhill a lot. That's not the most ideal because it increases injury risk and you get less aerobic stimulus. So you have to run harder. So it's more impact. So if you can, most of these things are going to be most productive on rolling / uphill terrain. But again, if there's a little dip or some slight downhill, totally fine. But you don't want to be doing any of this down Pikes Peak.
So we have some common traps we just want to talk about real quick. Going too hard.
Yeah.
I kind of mentioned this already. There is a difference between a 5 and a 6 out of 10 RPE and a 7 out of 10 RPE and a 7 out of 10 RPE and an 8 out of 10 RPE.
Yep.
This is why it's really, really great to have a coach or to have a really good understanding of what your threshold effort is, what your 1 hour effort pace is, because you can then analyze your efforts to see at what percentage of your threshold you were running these workouts at, and you can use that to fine tune. Because what I see a lot in my coaching is athletes are typically running these steady state efforts at about like 9 to 7% of their threshold.
Yeah.
So they're essentially accidentally doing a threshold workout on these,
which is not what we want.
It's not ideal. It's a little more stress than we need. It's a little less specific than we want.
Yeah. So yeah. And I think that, again, like the big trap here is like, make sure your easy days don't turn into a steady state. This is, I think, like for me, a slightly more advanced workout. Like this is when we think, when the fitter you get is sort of like you have more in your speed. Like if your speed range was a box of crayons, the fitter you get, you add more crayons, and you're able to better detect the gradations between like, oh, recovery and endurance. And that's the big one that I really want athletes to learn to differentiate. And then threshold and VO2 max. And then steady state is tricky because, again, a lot of like newer runners or folks who aren't extremely disciplined about running their easy days sufficiently easy, they're actually pretty familiar with that zone. Yeah. They're just running it all the freaking time.
But they think it's easy.
Like they think it's easy.
Because you can sustain it theoretically for 2 hours. And also like so if you spend a lot more time running there, that's going to feel more efficient to you. That's going to feel better.
Short term.
Right. And then you go and you run your marathon and you're like, wait, I thought this was my easy effort. And then you ran a 4-hour marathon and, you know, slower than you run.
And you run your easy days. The amount of time I have seen that happen.
Right. You should not run your marathon slower than you run your easy days.
Your easy days need to be slower than your marathon time.
Right. It feels obvious, but like, again,
we see it
all the time. So slow
be intentional with this
down, and then you can really get the benefit of these runs.
And less is more, and you just don't want to do this too often on purpose, and especially not on purpose, because it can sometimes be in that zone of like, it's not quite hard enough to provoke the adaptations we might most want.
Yes.
Right? Like the ability to shuttle lactate at lactate threshold or VO2 max adaptations, but it's also a little it's hard enough that it's going to undermine recovery. So you're really not going to be able to continue to build volume, like build your aerobic volume the way you would want to in training, or access those higher end efforts that you want to in a VO2 max workout or a threshold.
So when do you commonly assign these kind of workouts to
athletes? Actually typically assign them later in builds for ultra runners when we want a little more specificity. Sometimes also in aerobic base building phases to keep things a little spicy without overdoing it. What about you?
Similar. Like I use it to help athletes tune up for their races.
Yeah.
And for like, even for elite athletes who are running hundreds, I'll have them doing these kind of workouts close to their race. But right on down to like marathon, because I think, you know, these workouts match up really well with marathon pace. So, you know, you're going to see those really close to the event to hone in on pacing for race.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Next, the tempo run. I feel like this is kind of the problem child of workouts because the term is used. I would love to see more standardization in how this is used because different coaches and different people use it differently and understand it differently. And it's less tied to like a physiological definite, right? Like we know what lactate threshold is because it is the point at which your body can no longer shuttle lactate from your bloodstream. We know what like your zone 1 is, like from a heart rate and like a physiology perspective, but tempo is pretty squirrely, and I think that is problematic in terms of using it and deploying it as a term, but there are also benefits to it. So we're going to dig into both the pros and the cons of the things that people call tempo runs. So this usually the way that this is used, I think one of my issues is a lot of times it's used interchangeably with threshold, and that is not true. It's sort of like the not all squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are squares type of thing. So a tempo run sits right around your lactate threshold or just under it, the hardest pace you could sustain for an hour. So we're thinking here an 8 to 9 out of 10 RPE. But a lot of times the way that this term is used is to encourage athletes to run at the tempo or effort level that they will do their next race at. Ultra runners really shouldn't be saying this a ton because you're not going to do like a 100, like run your 100-mile pace in the context of a workout. Like that's not really something we need to practice in the context of a workout. So a lot more times we'll see this used with like, I feel like 10K is a little too spicy, and that would be faster than like most people's aerobic threshold. And it's a little more relaxed than, or again, like there's not really a definition here. So it's not marathon pace because that's marathon pace. But usually this is used to refer to things kind of right around that half marathon pace zone, a little slower than aerobic threshold, but not quite marathon pace. So it's hard to say exactly what's happening in your body because we would need to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. But the idea here is to improve your ability to run faster for longer. And sometimes the intent is to bridge the gap between endurance work and true threshold intervals, or to practice those race pace efforts. I think, again, a better terminology to use is just tell people like run half marathon pace.
Right. Like,
Like
just
do
target
that.
your race pace.
Yeah.
And I think that's why tempo is a term that honestly it feels so not specific.
Yeah.
And that's because, you can do a moderate tempo, you can do a like I've seen this prescribed as moderate tempo, hard tempo, and because tempo has a definition to it, like
It means time.
right, and it's like to sit. The way that I've seen this is, and that the way that I even sometimes use it in my coaching is like tempo describes you're going to spend a long time at this effort level.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
these intervals are going to be for a long duration. We're trying to find a tempo and a rhythm that you can get comfortable at this pace.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be using this pace specifically for a reason.
Yeah. For more advanced athletes, oftentimes in either the 2 weeks out or the week before a race, I'll have them do a 20-minute tempo in the context of an endurance run to sort of rev the engine without going. Because especially if we're doing a lot of aerobic volume going into an ultra, I want them to like, let's get a little turnover going. Let's get comfortable being a little uncomfortable. But again, we don't need to go like full send on a threshold workout. So it's like a laid back moment of experiencing intensity.
So what's happening here?
So again, the goal here is to build the ability to run faster for longer. But again, it really just depends on like how it's used in the context of training and how fast you're actually going. Are you going closer to your threshold effort? Are you going closer to steady state effort?
Right.
Because what a tempo run can be is basically either a steady state run or a threshold run, depending on what it actually means, because there's no like tempo is 9 out of 10, like it isn't as standardized as a term. I do still think it can be useful in the way that I use it, because that's how I use it, of being like, let's rev the engine a little bit before race day. Let's practice like running a little faster than normal, but again, not quite like at a workout intensity that would set us back. Because it's good to get a little juice going before, again, for more advanced athletes, like let's put it in our body what it feels like to do more than like a recovery run, because you're going to be doing a lot of recovery volume in a taper.
And I think also, just to build on that point, the way to consider this is through as much specificity as you can. So if you're an athlete who's self-coaching and you're like grabbing a plan off the internet that just tells you tempo run, that's not specific. So like look at the context in which that's being prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
What phase of training are you in? Are you very close to a race? Okay, that probably then you could extrapolate from that. That means I'm practicing race pace.
Yeah.
But if you're far away from a race, maybe that's really telling you that this is threshold work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you see those terms, asking who is creating that plan for you, what does this mean? What RPE am I supposed to be at? Because you get different adaptations when you're running at an RPE 7 out of 10 as opposed to an 8 or a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's the way that the process works. And so not knowing which adaptations you're going for is a problem. Not having that specificity doesn't allow you to execute at your highest level. This is one of the biggest issues I have with seeing some plans out there that say moderately hard.
Mm.
Like moderately hard tempo, or 20 minutes moderately hard, or 20 minutes moderate to hard. Um, what does that mean specifically?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean shit. Like, it honestly doesn't mean anything, because we know that moderate is 7 out of 10, and that's a totally different adaptation than hard,
Right.
which is 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Moderate and hard are like
So,
real different
it
things.
means nothing.
Yeah.
It means you're not going to get a lot out
It's
of
sort
that
of like
workout.
easy hard.
Right. So, like, if you hear
Those are just different things.
if you
Soft hard.
yeah, if you hear moderately hard and it's not qualified by some kind of information, if you hear tempo, it's not qualified by some kind of information, inquire, because you don't want to do a workout. Go out there and do something that's freaking hard for no reason.
Yes. Yeah. Do things on purpose.
Do it on purpose. That's the moral of the podcast.
Of all of this. And again, the same sort of traps apply here. A lot of times, folks will go too hard. Once your breathing turns like very ragged, or your pace fades, you've drifted past tempo, you might be getting into VO2 max. Again, do not make every run tempo-ish or tempo adjacent.
We get a little
tempo curious. Living in the gray zone will lead to stagnation and fatigue. Also, don't get caught up in chasing pace instead of effort. Again, if you're training for a half marathon or a marathon and you want to practice those paces, that's a slightly different context. But like, particularly when we really want to be focused on effort, getting locked into like, I gotta run 8:30 as like my tempo, we don't want to do that. Trust how you feel. Acknowledge the existence of terrain, heat, altitude, fatigue that all change what a tempo looks like on paper, especially if you're in the middle of a build and your fatigue is higher. Your pace might look different. That is normal. That means you're alive. So, this is like one of those, I think this is like tarragon as a seasoning, like use it sparingly, there's a time and a place and it's not everywhere all the time.
Yes.
Also, I don't like tarragon.
So let's talk about our threshold runs here, our lactate threshold. This is the good stuff, right on the edge.
Yeah. And this is the one that of these three that I use the most because it is specific. We know what it is, we know where it is, and we know what it does. Often this is something that is honestly pretty underdeveloped in athletes that haven't trained specifically.
Yeah, so threshold lives right at the tipping point between your aerobic and anaerobic metabolisms. So your lactate threshold, that's right there, right at that tipping point, and it's the maximum sustainable effort you can hold for about an hour.
Yep.
On the RPE scale, typically 8 to 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
With 9 being on that side of a 40-minute effort, like a 10K effort, and 8 being a 1 hour effort. So you're breathing hard. You're really focused. You're in the pain cave on these conversations off the table, but you might be able to get in like 3 or 4 word sentences.
You'd be able to say, "This sucks. I hate my coach."
Pretty
probably.
It kind of feels a little frantic.
Feels a little frantic, but like it's also not like, I feel like when I'm doing VO2 max intervals, the conversation in my brain sounds like, "Ah!" And when I'm doing threshold, it's like, oh my God, this is hard. Oh my God, this is hard. Can I sustain this? This is hard. Okay, I think I can sustain it. Okay, we're doing it. Okay, it's over.
12 minutes later.
12 minutes later. 12 to 20 minutes later.
12 to 20 minutes later. So what's happening in your body? At this effort, your body is producing a lot of lactate. And your system, your system, it's not strong enough to clear that lactate efficiently. That's where we start to really feel like that burning sensation in the legs, and
from the accumulation of hydrogen
comes out of your eyes and your ears, and just kidding. But you're training your lactate shuttling capacity in these situations. So how well your body moves and reuses lactate as energy, and this is really important for race performance at like all the races, 5K, 10K.
This is a big one.
Marathon, 50K, and all the way up to maybe even 200 milers. I'm sure it matters somewhere in there. So you're also refining your neuromuscular coordination and building neural pathways because you're running very fast for a long duration of time. And you're building mental resilience, which is a nice byproduct of these workouts. Like, you can't do these and really like not be pretty good at like developing and having a good inner coach. Like you
Yeah.
got to be able to talk yourself through it to stay like on that edge. And it gives you an opportunity to put those tools into practice, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Why does this matter?
So, threshold runs are really important for raising your aerobic ceiling and teaching you to perform right at your limit. So that's hugely valuable for racing and for handling tough climbs late and long races. I think especially for more advanced athletes, there can be a world where you creep into that steady state and or threshold adjacent territory later in a race on purpose and with precision and learning what it feels like to back down from that edge. They're one of the most efficient ways to build both speed and endurance, but they do come with a higher recovery cost. So timing matters, specificity matters, workout composition matters. So again, we're looking at like, I usually cue this as an 8 out of 10 effort. I used to cue it as a 7. Another thing I've changed my mind on.
Yeah.
It's to you. Now it's an 8 for me. Again, but like, all of
Again,
made
the
up.
product,
Yes.
like,
so
it's good to evolve that.
Yep. So it feels like you are redlining, but you're not jumping off a cliff.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like, sometimes for athletes, I will give them shorter threshold intervals when we're like sort of introducing the concept, but looking at a lot of the evidence, you need a longer interval to accumulate sufficient lactate. So a lot of times we'll see intervals of like 10, 12, 15, upwards up to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
At threshold. And then you have half the time that you like. If the interval is 10 minutes, the recovery should be 5. So it's 50% recovery time.
Yeah.
And again, ideally, this is going to be, you're going to get the most bang for your buck uphill. Really not ideal to this downhill because that's a lot of pounding relative to the aerobic stimulus you're getting.
My poor legs.
Poor legs. So slightly rolling or flat terrain is ideal here.
I do like to, when possible, have athletes really do this uphill, especially like if you're a marathon runner and we're working together and we're doing a threshold block, we're going to run that on the flats.
Yeah.
Because that's specific to your race. But if you're an ultra runner and you're doing a lot of your threshold work close to races on the flats, it's not super specific. We might be missing some good specificity that happens when we do our workouts uphill.
I love hate doing threshold workouts uphill because like
so tough.
I did one block this year where I did, because it was winter, a lot of my threshold work on the flats. Then I did another block going into the summer where it was uphill on trails. Oh my God, it's so much easier to run hard uphill. Like, it's just like immediately I was like, yep, found it. There I am.
Right there.
Headline.
You're right there.
Don't have to go looking for it. Whereas like on flats, I was like, okay, okay, legs, turn over.
Right.
Very easy to run hard up. I mean, it's running uphill's hard, is what I'm saying.
And like the pacing for it, I always think like, okay, yes, you could be running faster right now, but just give it one more minute.
Yes,
and you'll be like, I'm glad I didn't start faster.
Yeah. Usually I feel like at the beginning you're like, oh, this is fine. And then at the end you're like, this isn't that fine.
Right. You're questioning.
But you shouldn't be like self-immolating. Like you shouldn't be like screaming panicked. So again, kind of the similar traps here. Don't start too hard the first interval, or the first couple of minutes of that interval should feel hard but smooth, not like a race. It's always better to turn the temperature up than to have to turn it down or scrape yourself off of the side of the trail.
I feel like for so many athletes, like if you're at the point in your training where you're doing these intervals at like at least 8 or 10 minute intervals or longer, maybe you're doing 12 and 15-minute long threshold intervals, start them a little easier than you think you should.
Yeah.
Like that'll allow for a better quality workout execution and likely more time at the desired intensity than if you kind of like race them and go out hot.
Yeah.
Because then you're just going to fall off a lot. And it's going to be harder to keep your heart rate up.
Yeah. And remember, it's still intensity, even though it's not VO2 max. So make sure you're very intentional about your recovery and you don't turn every single run you do into a steady state tempo threshold session. So make sure that you're intentional about these and it makes sense for where you're at in training. I think also if you like hear this, what you should not do is hear this podcast and be like, woohoo, all in on threshold and like never do top end, never do VO2 max, because like your threshold, VO2 max will be a limiter on your threshold will be a limiter on aerobic fitness. So you got to always be working, like wiggling up all of those sort of like margins on your fitness.
I like these little takeaways here. So if you're finishing your interval feeling like you have maybe another 10 minutes in you, you're probably at about steady state.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working hard and breathing controlled but steady, tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Like you should get to the end of those tempo intervals, really needing a few seconds to regroup. But you shouldn't feel like there's much left at the end of each one of those intervals. And if you're hanging on and the effort feels like, the top end of sustainable, okay, now we're in threshold.
Yeah. I always think about it as like, I want to stop and I absolutely don't have to.
Yes.
But
I want to stop.
Really want to.
Don't stop.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah.
I want these adaptations.
Yeah. So again, making sure to be really intentional with these, making sure that it's in alignment with the specificity of your event, and rotate them intelligently. And more isn't better. The magic is in contrast, in periodization and polarization. Hard days hard, easy days easy. Don't do things willy-nilly.
All right, little recap. Steady state builds your aerobic foundation. Tempo, it's kind of the stepbrother of the whole thing here. Really know if you see tempo.
Guy at the party.
Yeah, really, really know what exactly are we going for.
I think of tempo like the Zach Galifianakis character in The Hangover.
Right,
he's like,
oh my God.
He's like this guy
on the periphery, but then he kind of he comes through like when we know what he needs to do to perform. He's good at counting cards.
Yes, he's good at counting cards. And if you're not sure which one to do, choose the one you can repeat next week, because consistency is always going to beat intensity. So stay smart, stay curious, and remember, effort is always your best metric, and workouts don't have to be perfect to be very productive. And because I'm contractually obligated to say this 100 times a day, every day, run your easy days easier.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. That was awesome. We'd love to hear from you. Like Zoe mentioned, hot or not, we would love to get into your list of hot or not topics. Send them our way, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. And we've got some coaches with roster spots open right now. It's fall. Don't wait until January to start training for your goals for next year. It's a mistake. Start now.